Let's take a look at a simple Rumpus installation and how you can map folders on your Mac to individual user accounts to control access for each person using the server. In this example, I'll have 3 different users, Brett, Mary, and Tom, each of which needs to be provided with their own FTP content. In other words, each user will have his or her own content area, and no user will be able to view or manage any other user's data. Folders have already been created for each user inside the Shared folder on this Mac, and I've placed a few files into each user's folder too. The goal of this tutorial will be to allow Brett, Mary, and Tom to access these folders and manage their content from anywhere on the Internet. I've downloaded a copy of Rumpus from the Maxim server, but haven't done any other installation or setup work. So the first thing I'll do is copy the Rumpus application to the local hard drive. The Applications folder is usually the best spot for Rumpus, but for now I'll just drop it onto the desktop. Next, I'll launch Rumpus and complete the Setup Assistant. The first thing the Setup Assistant asks for is the FTP root folder. The FTP root is the folder in which all FTP user content will be held. Rumpus defaults to using the Shared folder as the FTP root, and since that's where I've placed Brett, Mary, and Tom's folders in this example, that'll work fine. Step 2 of the Setup Assistant allows me to define an initial user account, and to get started, I'll create an account for myself. This initial user account will be able to access any content in the FTP root folder. Since all FTP content will be in the FTP root, I'll have access to the content of all other users of the system. Step 3 enables the Rumpus Web File Manager. The defaults here are fine, so I'm ready to complete the installation. With the server installed and basic setup complete, I'll simply click Start Server, and then open a browser and check my login. Notice that the content I am able to view and manage through Rumpus matches the files and folders stored in the FTP root folder on the Mac. And if I drop a new file into the folder on the Mac, it becomes available in my Rumpus view as well. Let's get back to our 3 users, Brett, Mary, and Tom. In Rumpus, I'll open the Define Users window to create new user accounts. I'll add a new account with Brett's name and a made-up password. Next, I'll select Brett's home folder in Rumpus to the content folder I've provided for him on the Mac. I can also set other options for Brett's account, like his file access privileges, his email address, and other settings. Now I'll create accounts for Mary and Tom. Again, I'll choose the appropriate home folder for each. To review the work, I can just choose the username in the Accounts list. Notice that as I move through the list, the home folder display and other options change to reflect the selected account. When finished, I'll close the window to save the changes and have the Rumpus server accept the new accounts. That's it. There are now 4 user accounts defined, one for each of the 3 users and a master account for myself. Each account has been assigned a content folder on the Mac. Let's move to another computer on the network and see how it works. I'll launch a web browser, connect to the server, and log in using Brett's user account. As expected, the content I see reflects the files stored in Brent's folder on the Mac. If I log out and then back in using Mary's account, the content I see changes accordingly. Not only can Mary view files in her folder, but she can upload files as well. Back on the server, I'll switch to the Finder and confirm that the file Mary uploaded now resides in her folder. Finally, we'll add one more feature to the server, a common folder that can be shared by two of the users, Mary and Tom. I'll create a new folder in the FTP root folder and name it Common. And I'll put a few files in there too. An alias is usually the best way to create a shortcut to a folder on the Mac, and that's exactly how I'll give Mary and Tom access to the new folder. In the Mac OS, an alias can be created by holding down the Command and Option keys and dragging a file or folder. So I'll Command Option drag the Common folder into Mary and Tom's home folders. In the Finder, Mary and Tom's content folder are now linked to the Common folder through the aliases. There's nothing to do in Rumpus at all, so let's go back to the test computer. Now, when I log in as Tom, the Common folder is displayed in the list, and I can move into it like I can any folder. Mary, of course, has access to the Common folder too. In this example, I've laid out a fairly simple and very useful way to manage your user content folders, but folders certainly don't have to be set up like this. What's important is the idea that you can lay out a folder structure on the server that matches the way you want to organize your users. Once that's done, setting up Rumpus so that each user has access to only the content they need is easy.